In today's episode of Drive to Death, Tata's Tiago EV.
Get ready to fight, to give it your all.
So, welcome then to the long-range version of the Tiago EV. Now, this might be the smallest EV that Tata makes, the most affordable one, but I do have high hopes from it. Now, that's because when we tested the Tigor EV, when we drove that to death, that gave us 230 kilometers of actual real-world range. And that included a bit of highway driving, so this should at least match it, if not better it. And just like the Citroen EC3 that we drove to death very recently, check that video out if you haven't already, we are going to be looping our city route, which means I have signed myself up for 200 odd kilometers of driving in bumper to bumper traffic. You should really start subscribing, you know. At 100%, the Tiago's onboard DTE showed an optimistic 275 kilometers to empty, but we now know better than to take that at face value. We were looping our usual route that circles back to Baner whilst tackling traffic in Pimple Nilak and Pimpri Chinchwad. So what's the DOT EV experience like? Having spent so much time with the Tiago EV, I get to give you 3 takeaways that kind of sum up the entire experience for me. Number 1, it feels like a complete car, and that's my favorite part about this. Feels like a premium-ish hatch that just happens to run on electricity. That's it. It's got leatherette seats, it's got a touchscreen, it's got a good sounding sound system. No real misses there at all. Number 2, you can really have fun with this car if you want to be naughty. If it were left to the boys at ZigWheels, I'm 100% sure sport mode would be the default mode for this car, because then we'd get to wheel spin all the range away, right? But I do see why Tata dialed in a normal, a sober, a more everyday drive mode for the Tiago EV. Finally, the ride quality. It is phenomenal for a car this size and for an EV at that. Pune's tabletop speed breakers, he doesn't really care about them at all. Broken roads, nah, no issues at all. And the suspension's quite quiet also. So yeah, that's what I think about the Tiago EV. But enough jibber jabber. Let me focus on running this drive. The same route over and over again does get boring pretty quickly, but we soldiered on as the Tiago dropped charge. Keep an eye on the DTE. 70, 50, 30. Now we'd earlier be fidgety, but now that we've driven so many EVs to death, I think range anxiety doesn't really exist anymore. But there's one common thread that ties all of these EVs together, and that is just the silence. It is static, man.
What are you at, like 30%, 35% or something? Yeah, once you're done with this D2D, what do you want to do for dinner? I was thinking Chinese, but I'm not like that keen on it. I don't want to do like egg fried rice and paneer chili again, man.
So yeah, turns out one test with the Citroen EC3 wasn't enough, so Tushar's been driving it with me this whole time to compare the two as closely as possible.
Yes, I'm driving the Citroen EC3 once again, but this time around I'm armed with some knowledge. You see, the onboard display for the battery percentage in the EC3 gives you the number down to the decimal point. So it's not just 1% or 2%, it's 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, whatever it may be, which I thought would be helpful when we did this with the Citroen EC3 alone, but the car died with range and charge still displayed on the system. So this time around, once the car is hitting about 2% battery percentage, I'm making a dash straight for the charger. As for the Tiago, based on our experience with the Tigor EV, the car should do about half a kilometer once the battery percentage drops down to 0. Now all we have to wait and see is who gets there first.
As we drove, it quickly became clear that the Tiago EV would be taking the loss today. But I didn't really mind losing. Down to the final 20% on the Tata Tiago EV. We still have 38 kilometers of range, and that just means we're going to run out of charge way before Tushar does, which I think is a good thing. I get to wrap up early. And then, nope, I don't have AC. At 10%, you lose air conditioning in a Tiago EV. Here you're also in limp home mode. This means that performance is dulled out, regen is extra regenerative, and if you spot inclines, it's best to carry momentum. That said, even here the Tiago EV seems perfectly usable. Yep, we're at 5% and the Tiago EV officially sounds like an operation theatre. We've done 202 kilometers so far, and hopefully another 10 more, hopefully.
I had none of that anxiety and was happy enjoying my quiet time in the EC3 when...
Tushar,
Yeah.
I've got a percent left. I've driven 213 kilometers and office isn't too far away, so I'm going to call it a day. I think this will do another 2 kilometers at best. So 213 to 215 for the Tiago EV. What's your range?
Range is too much more. I have done 213.3 kilometers, have 18.4% charge still left and 60 kilometers of range apparently.
Okay, have fun. Bye.
No question about it, I am ready to get hurt again.
I treated myself and the crew to a well-earned dinner, while Tushar put in some extra hours.
Why are you regenerating?
Until the inevitable happened.